Who's the black private dick that's a sex machine to all the chicks? You damn right. Who is the man that would risk his neck for his brother, man? Can you dig it? Who's the cat that won't cop out when there's danger all about? Right on. You see this cat chef is a bad.
Welcome. Sunday night, 8 p.m. Eastern Standard Time. Here we are, the Radical Republican Live show with your boy, the Chief Jarome Bell. Welcome. Hope y'all had a great 4th of July, a great Independence Day, but I have some questions. Well, I had a good one, though. I spent the day with the grandkid and watching fireworks yesterday evening. He was amazed. Adam sat there and watched them very well. So I hope y'all had a good day. And 250 years. 250 years of this country. Welcome everyone that's coming. I see you, Susan, waiting on Carolyn over there. I see people. And on Getter, Getter has blocked the transmission. Getter has blocked the live from Rumble. They don't talk, so I would have to do a separate live or a coordinated live. It's just really weird. Really weird of what's going on. But Getter, I'm not live on Getter. Had about 1,500 live viewers on Getter. Hopefully they'll come over to Rumble. Hopefully put everybody on notice that I will be on Rumble Live. Also on YouTube. Amazingly, YouTube has not taken me off yet. And I did put the link in Facebook. So all of those that may be on Facebook and on X, I'm not on X anymore because I am not blue check verified because I'm not paying for that. I refuse to pay for something that actually still shadow bans me. It's just pretty amazing, right? I was blue check verified before you had to pay, and then they began to shadow ban you, to shadow ban the show, shadow ban me like they did before. But that's okay, though. We're a free country with free speech, right? At least that's what they tell us anyway. So yesterday was the 4th of July. And my birthday was 3 days before that. Thank you very much. Thank you to everyone that wished me happy birthday. I appreciate that. Thank you. The big 60 look good for 60, if I do say so myself. But thank you all. Thank you all again. I don't even know if you heard the intro because I had the music turned down. I had it in my ear, though. I had everything in my ear. But 250 years since a bunch of farmers and lawyers, I think some lawyers in there too, right? Signed what some call a piece of paper. Some call a piece of paper telling the most powerful empire on earth, no king, no permission. We govern ourselves. This is what this country is founded on, self-governance. Self-governance. This is what they escaped England or Britain and came over here for, right? So on the 250th anniversary of that declaration, the Declaration of Independence, I want to ask a question that I haven't seen nobody in Washington once asked out loud tonight. Nobody. So are we still that? Are we still that country that said no king, no permission, we govern ourselves? Do we still govern ourselves? Are we still a republic? A nation of free people who consent, keyword, consent to be governed. Consent to be governed. Or have we quietly become something else, but we're just wearing the same flag, having the same holidays, singing the same national anthem? Because I have a few problems. I have a few problems with what we have become. And because when you talk about, let's just talk about the surveillance and our Fourth Amendment for a minute. By the way, we got a great show. I have a great guest that's supposed to come on at the second hour, Larry Johnson, but we'll get to that in a minute. So the big thing right now is these flock cameras, right? All over the nation. Some people are tearing them down. People are getting in trouble tearing them down. But this is our Fourth Amendment right. So the surveillance and the degradation of our Fourth Amendment right. So we have flock safety, I call it. So over 100,000 cameras, more than 5,000 law enforcement agencies scanning roughly, and this is a big number, you guys have to get this, roughly 20 billion, billion with a B, license plates a month. And that B is not a typo. The B is the B, billion, every month. So to me, this isn't what catch the bad guy, what they want. Oh, this is for the bad guy. This is for people that's doing, criminal acts, right? This isn't catch the bad guy technology. It's a dragnet. It's a dragnet. I mean, you remember I talked about this on my show, I don't know, some months ago about about movies, right? And I talked about the Minority Report long time ago before people even started talking about these flock cameras. You hear people talking about it now. Oh well, now we're living in the Minority Report. Remember that with Tom Cruise? I talked about this a long time ago, maybe a year and a half, 2 years ago, about where we are, where we were, and where we were going, and that Minority Report wasn't just a movie; it was the future of America. Well, here we are. I mean, these flock cameras, they photograph every car, every plate, every time. I mean, whether you've done anything or not. So that's the definition of a general warrant. A general warrant. And that's the exact thing the Fourth Amendment was written to forbid. And one of the problems is, other than it happens, one of the problems is the data doesn't stay local. It doesn't stay local at all. We had in San Francisco's, for example, San Francisco's database alone got searched by out of state and federal agencies 1.6 million times in 7 months. The audit logs, I'm told, in California showed search reasons literally typed in as ICE and CBP. And I'm all about law enforcement. However, law enforcement was made, was enacted, was supposed to, as per the law, right? The essay called the law, to protect our life, liberty, and pursuit of property. This is what law enforcement is supposed to do. They're supposed to protect our inalienable rights of life, liberty, and pursuit of property. This is what law enforcement is for. Was supposed to be for. And I understand the illegal immigration. I understand that. I get it. I'm a big proponent about no. I ran on an immigration moratorium, so I'm definitely not the guy that says that we shouldn't have, or that everyone can come into America. The borders are wide open. No, 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 no. We're not doing that. But Denver found over 1,400 immigration related searches in its own logs. So these are searches. This isn't just catch the bad guy. This is Dragnet. You guys remember? I don't know, man. I'm showing my age. Would you remember the show Dragnet? Some of my older watchers and viewers of the show, like, sorry, Joe Olsen. Man, I went to Texas. Me and Joe had a blast. I went, man. Joe Olsen came out with me and my family, me and my wife and my oldest son. We were at, what was it called? The Thirsty Horse. The Thirsty Horse. Met Joe. Joe's a dancer. Joe's a hell of a dancer, man. He be spinning those girls, man. His country bar. Joe be spinning the girls. Carolyn's in the house as well, along with some others waiting on Nick and some more people. Joe says we've been at war for 231 years of the 250 years, and that's by George Galloway, and I believe that. But more than 50 cities, Republican and Democrat alike. This is bipartisan now. This isn't just, the radical Republican going against the Democrats, because right now we have a Republican president, House, and Senate. Things aren't going too well for America. I mean, I'm an independent now. You guys know I ran as a Republican. Really, I was a conservative running on a Republican ticket. Now I'm a conservative independent. I have to find a home before I run again. Or maybe I'll just run again as an independent, but it's tough. It's tough running as an independent because the way that the two parties have solidified themselves in America, we have to get away from the two-party system. And I know there's talk with Tucker Carlson about starting a third party. We need some money, Dan. We need some money, Tucker. You're going to put in some money. I'll run. He said, I'm not going to run on it, but I'll help start it. I'll run. You give me the money, Tucker, I'll run. How about that? But the more than 50 cities have already ripped these cameras out because specifically they found federal agencies rifling through local data without a warrant, without consent, without anybody voting on it. This is a violation of everyone's Fourth Amendment rights. We have a tort, a lawsuit against the United States government, period, because they are violating everyone's Fourth Amendment right. So you have to ask yourself, right? If your own town never voted on it, and some have, I know this. If the company keeps discovering the guard rails don't work, then I mean, who actually authorized this? Who authorized it? If your city council didn't vote on, who authorized this? Why are these cameras just being put up in these cities? You know, and that's not a free people governing them themselves. This is not. Definitely not a free people governing ourselves. That's infrastructure for controlled, built one council meeting at a time, mostly while nobody's watching. A lot of things I think they do these in these closed sessions, right? In these backroom deals. But a lot of people are starting to speak out on these things, and people are tearing them down, man. It's and I will go to bat for anyone that tear it down because there's no corporate accountability here, right? You you can't touch the giants; they're too big to fail, right? I mean, because you have to look at it. Even though we're right, because you have to look at last week or around June 25th, right? The Supreme Court got it wrong again. Got it wrong again, and the Supreme Court basically ruled 6-3. I was gonna say 7-2, but I think it was like a little dissent or something. But 6-3 in Monsanto versus Durnell. So and if you haven't heard about that, if you've been, basically just off social media, not watching the show, not watching me post on Facebook, because I try to keep you informed as much as possible. I mean, in that case, you had this is what these big corporations do. They lose in smaller court, then they take it up to the Supreme Court because one, they have the money and they know that a bunch of them are bought off. But a Missouri jury had already found Monsanto failed to warn people Roundup could cause cancer. We know this. We've been hearing about this for years. And the Supreme Court just said on June 25th, that doesn't matter. They said that doesn't matter. So federal pesticide approval, they shields the company. Case closed. Case closed. 65,000 other lawsuits are now in jeopardy because of this one case by the Supreme Court. 65,000 other lawsuits are in jeopardy. So I want that. I really want you to sit with that for a moment. We're supposed to have a jury of our peers, right? We're supposed to, so a jury of Americans, actual citizens doing their constitutional duty. Frederick Douglass said we have the ballot box, we have the jury box, and we have the cartridge box. So these people were in the jury box doing their constitutional duty. And they said that this company, Monsanto, owes a man for giving him cancer. And the Supreme Court and here's a lot of people disagree with me for going against a lot of things that Trump and Trump's DOJ and Trump's admin is doing. But the Supreme Court with Trump, DOJ, and EPA, they were there on Monsanto's side, not the American citizen. They sided and was there for Monsanto. And the corporation's federal paperwork beat the jury's verdict. Overturned. 65,000 other lawsuits now in jeopardy. See, and that's the trade that we've made. I think we've been, in this country, we've been too complacent with how well we've done, most of us. We've been too, in our own bubbles. We've been too forgiving. I mean, because I say this all the time, that the way that this country is now, our founding fathers would have been stacking bodies the whole time, especially the way it is now. I know they would be stacking bodies. Surveillance cameras with no accountability watching the citizens, multinational chemical companies with built-in legal immunity poisoning the citizens, and this includes big pharma. I mean, so who's actually being protected here? Because it's not us. It's the money. And you look and you see what Trump has brought around him into nothing but big tech, big corporations throwing billions of dollars. This is the biggest pay for play administration I have ever seen in my 60 years of life and my many years of voting for who I thought was really going to protect the citizens and do the right thing. And then we have the First Amendment. I mean, the speech squeeze. I mean, I've been canceled. Nothing done. I told you guys about the lawsuit I had against Zuckerberg and Facebook because they canceled me. They, shadow banned me during an election. They were in part of election interference in my race. With Section 230, I sued them for on the reason was Section 230 filed, and this is how it works with the big corporations too. If you haven't heard this story, I'm going to tell it to you real quick before we move on. But we filed the lawsuit in the state of Virginia, where my lawyer is licensed to practice law. Zuckerberg and his team, who's have lawyers everywhere, they came in and they filed a motion to change the venue to California to where his, lawyers and his setup is out there in the valley. And I'd be damned if the lawyer, the judge in the court system, instead of keeping the case there in Virginia, you have a citizen, a resident of Virginia, suing one of the biggest corporations in the world, Facebook, Mark Zuckerberg, over my First Amendment rights, my free speech rights. And they awarded him change of venue out to California. Out to California. So I don't have a lawyer in California, right? But I did contact lawyers out there, and this is what they told me. This is what they told me. A matter of fact, I even, you know, contacted what's her name? Her meet. I lose track of her name because she sort of pissed me off. Harmeet Dillon, I think her name is, right? Contacted her office. She said she wanted a $10,000 retainer. First Amendment right case against Facebook. Would have been national, worldwide news. This little bitty guy from living in Virginia suing Facebook. Harmeet Dillon's law firm is on the case. She wanted a $10,000 retainer. So I contacted lawyers out in California, and this is what they told me. More than one lawyer, they told me this. They said, well, how much money do you have? And the reason we asked that, and this is what they all told me this, 6 of them, I believe it was. They said, well, what's going to happen is this. Out here in Silicon Valley, this is where the venue was switched to, Silicon Valley. This is what's going to happen. You're going to go to court, and they're going to file a petition or a motion to dismiss, and when that don't go, they will file a motion to continue. Right? They file a motion to continue. So, and what happens with that is they'll keep filing motions, bring you to court, spend money with your lawyer, keep your lawyer on retainer. So all this time is costing you money. They'll bring you back to court, file for a motion to continue. The judge will grant it because they're all on the take. File a motion to dismiss. They won't grant that. File a motion to continue. They'll grant that. So they say they'll just keep doing that until you run out of money because they will never run out of money. So they will break you, make you penniless, and then when you can't show up to court, they'll file for dismissal, and the judge will grant it. So this is what this is truly what we're up against. I fought it. I went up against this. See, so and while we're being watched and we can't sue the people hurting us, try saying the wrong thing about any of it. I mean, I've had it. I got deplatformed from YouTube. My channel got nuked. Then they came back, 6 years later, and said, hey, we made a mistake, man. So we're going to put your video back up. Well, thanks, bud. Appreciate that. Got canceled on Twitter 2 weeks before my election. I mean, so you got this lawfare going on, and I mean, I've had it happen to me, so I understand. And right now, I believe it's happening over at Getter because I can't. I mean, I can do it live on Getter. I just can't do it the way I want to anymore. If I can stream on multiple platforms at once. I mean, so here's the question I want sitting with you tonight here on this, and I'm the one, and the one I'm going to actually put directly to Larry Johnson when he joins us later, a man who spent his career inside the intelligence apparatus and now spends his outside life telling the truth about it. So when the state can watch every car on every road without a warrant, when a corporation can poison us, and the highest court in the land says you have no remedy when saying the wrong thing about either one or about a certain country, gets you quietly squeezed out of the public square, is that a republic anymore? We've talked about it. I said over a year ago, I believe we are, and you hear them talking about it. You hear Trump talking about it a lot now. Well, they need to go back and watch the show, right? When I started talking about it, we are basically living and have been living under communism for years. This isn't a republic. Even though we celebrated 250 years, they're talking about it now. They're talking about the Mandami thing, right? New York, and how all of them, they won. They weren't against Israel. So now it's all communists. It's communists. We have to beat the communists. Bitch, we been living under communism. Where the fuck you been? Oh, I know Mar-Lago and golf course and billions of dollars, you know, coin, the digital Trump coins and shit, Trump phones that nobody ever got. I mean, so you're out there making billions, and now you're talking about communism. I say it's communism with just better marketing, right? I mean, because you got to understand the founding fathers didn't fight a king, so we could end up with a surveillance state and a corporate shield instead of a crown. So hold that thought. I'm gonna bring it back to Larry at 9 o'clock when he comes on tonight. So just checking the chat a little bit before I move on. Jamie, what's up, man? Jamie Cologne is in the house. Ginger Berg, hello. Ginger, man, I remember. Ginger was a big supporter of Trump. Most everybody in here was. And some may still. Hey, thanks, Jamie, for the birthday. Shout out. I mean, and some are. I mean, I'm just laying it out. I was one of the biggest. I'm sorry. I was there, the MAGA candidate of 2022 in Virginia, 2nd District, number 2. But if you watched the show a few weeks ago, I said it's not about Trump derangement. It's about Trump disappointment. It's about Trump disappointment. I mean, because you have to look at it. We're 127, right, days now with Hormuz. Hormuz Day 127. I'll call it that. Yeah, it's recovering. Trump, we're moving 19 billion gallons of oil, and they blah blah blah. They lie so much. They lie so much. I mean, even Hegseth, I mean, talk about, the cost of the war being, 25 billion. No, bitch, it's like 113 billion. Let's tell the truth. Costing Americans $1,000 in over each American over $1,000 in gas prices alone. That's not to mention everything else, the food prices, the energy prices. So it's recovering over there, but still only 27 vessels transit per day versus pre-war, a baseline of anywhere between 84 and 120 a day. So France and UK have offered a freedom of navigation naval mission. They better keep their ass away from the straits. Iran has warned against it, and we do not control the strait. I don't care what Trump says, Hegseth, Rubio, what they said, because I mean, all the MOU talks they passed through July 9th. They paused. I'm sorry, all the MOU talks they're paused because of this funeral. All the way through because they have this week funeral for Khamenei's funeral, and this is supposed to be the largest attended funeral in the history of the world. So, supposedly a nation with a leader that everyone hates is going to have the largest attended funeral in the history of the world. Imagine that. Think about that. I have to pull up something real quick because I'm going to need it later. So give me a moment. Give me a moment. Because I'm going to read something from it in hour 2. Because our government, Israel's government, and people like this, they continue to gaslight us on who and I've said this on my show and gave you the number of times too, who disregarded the ceasefire, right? Who broke the ceasefire, right? Okay, so I got this set. All right. Never again, hand pink waving. I'm disgusted too. Hey, like he says, not derangement, it's disappointment, right? So they're pausing. We got Brent Crew right now. Hey, yeah, Trump is, yes, oil is down $70 and like 57 cents a barrel, the lowest since before the war started. February 27th, everything was fine. Everything was fine before February 28th. Everything. Everything was running smooth except Israel wanted Iran. That's basically what it is. They wanted Iran destroyed. So Iran's new supreme leader, and I always mess these names up, but I know it's Muqtada Khamenei, has publicly stated that he has a different view than President Pezeshkian on the June MOU that was signed by President Trump. You have to understand this. This was signed, and when I read, I'm only going to read one of the clauses to you. Matter of fact, I'll read it to you before Larry Johnson came on. Then I repeat it. But only one clause, just one. I'm going to read one, and it's number 5 down the list. So apparently, either Trump didn't read it. I hear he doesn't read very much. He just listens to what people tell him. I hear he don't read, like his briefs, his security briefs, and things like this MOU, because he signed this MOU. This is the big thing. He signed it. The president of the United States signed it. So our government, president, secretary of state, vice president, say that Iran broke the cease agreement, which they didn't. And I'm going to read why. And if you can understand the English language, whether you support Trump or not, like I said, I don't want the guy to fail. He's doing a very good job on his own. But I don't want the guy to fail. But I'm going to tell the truth because that's what this show is about. Whether you're going to hear it from any other conservative or not, you won't. You'll hear some of the things from, some Democrats and some liberals, but the things you hear on this show is from a very conservative standpoint. Very conservative standpoint. And so now you have Israel, Yemen. And I'm going to say this, Israel is the problem in the Middle East. Point blank, period, dead stop. Dead stop. Because now you have Israel, Yemen. Reports that Israel is preparing strikes on Yemen. What the Israel doesn't want peace. You guys have to understand that. Listen. Why would they prepare strikes on Yemen when Yemen has shut down the Red Sea? So you have Yemen that's going to shut down the Red Sea, right? In the Ben Strait or whatever, Manab, Strait over there. And then you got the Strait of Hormuz that's shut down or ran by Iran. I mean, so you have epic fury basically spreading on its own momentum. Israel is in Lebanon blowing up, places in Beirut. So how durable are any of these deals anyway? Really? Yes, they're on paper. Israel does not honor any ceasefire agreement ever. They've broken over 1,000 of them, so we know they're not going to honor them. And then you got the SPR, you got oil price, you got Trump claiming record Hormuz flow. But here's the thing, it's not record Hormuz flow. Let's just stop because it's not even back to pre war levels. But our SPR, our strategic petroleum reserve, sits at 325.7 million barrels as of this week. As of this week. And that's confirmed below the Joe Biden era, below the 2023 low, and the lowest since 1980s. So when we talk about, oh, Joe Biden, oil and gas prices in the strategic reserve, we're below that now. We're below that, and the lowest since the early 80s. And people that are old enough to remember, we had that oil crisis. We had in 78, 77, 78, because of, the same type thing, us fucking around in the Middle East. So you have total U.S. crude, including the SPR now, is at a multi-decade low, last matched in October 1984. Are we winning? Are you tired of winning yet? Are we winning? And here's the thing: people don't understand that the reason we have some low gasoline prices right now is because they've been using the strategic reserves to export to these other countries, to put on the market. These prices are artificial. So the record flow claim, it doesn't match the inventory picture. More gaslighting, more bullshit. It doesn't match the inventory. So that's one thing we're going to talk with Larry when he comes on as well. I mean, so we got Epic. So the Epic Fury scorecard, the way I see it, just a quick recap as well, because we've been lied to and continue to be lied to about the cost. About the cost. And I'm talking about cost of the war, cost of aircraft, cost of the lives. 42 aircraft lost or damaged, and the Pentagon number sits at 29 billion. They don't even talk about the bases. Do you understand that they don't? Have you heard? And Jamie can verify this. Jamie knows some information on this, especially about Bahrain. They never talk about the bases. They never talk about the damage to the bases. Our bases were annihilated. I told you this from day one. What happened day one? They were annihilated. I know people that were there. I know people that were in the basement of the hotel as the hotel was getting bombed, and they thought they were going to die. And then the bombing stopped, and they had to take an 8-hour bus ride to Saudi Arabia. I know people. The official KIA number is now 15. Used to be 13. Now it's 15. It's much more than that. And what it is, these KIAs, they are only talking about the number of military personnel, which I think is higher. They're not talking about contractors. They're not talking about all Americans. And you remember the last show, I think I had like 420 wounded. Well, now it's up to 543 per the latest sitcom linked account. And then Hegseth has the nerve to say 99% of them are being returned to active duty. You lying piece of shit. Most of them have traumatic brain injuries. Most of the wounded, 543 is low. I'm seeing numbers and hearing numbers and being told numbers upwards towards 800 or 1,000 dead, not even wounded. But this is up from the Pentagon's original 13 and 365. So, I need you guys to understand this. Because in hour two, we're going to get in it. Hour two, we're going to jump in it, because when we come back in hour two, Larry Johnson of Sonar 21 is supposed to be here. Larry, man, he appears on Judge Napolitano's show. I believe he's been on. I know he's on Mario Narfal's show a lot. I know he's on Colonel Davis's show a lot. People that you may or may not know about. But this is a man who sat across the table from Sergei Lavrov, Russian himself, and he's going to join us live for the second full hour of the show. And we're going to carry that question right into his segment. Are we still a republic? I'm going to ask Larry that. Are we still a republic? And what's happening with Epic Fury? What's happening in Hormuz? And now Ukraine again. Man, Ukraine is. I think Ukraine is either trying to commit suicide or it's still. I know it's just a proxy to try to get Russia into a war with NATO because this is what they really want. This is what they really want. But we have Ukraine proof that the same forces eroding our freedoms at home are the same ones driving policy abroad. You know that. If you looked at what happened in 2014, we talked about that, right? Who was it? It was John McCain, and rest his soul. I'm not gonna say bless his soul because I think John McCain was a piece of shit. Lindsey Graham, Victoria Nuland, her famous phone call, her famous that got leaked, and when they were putting in these puppets over in Ukraine when we led the coup in 2014. We're going to talk about the real cost of this war with Larry as well, in dollars and aircraft, and what Ernest Will, we talked about it, looked like. We'll see if Larry remembers Ernest Will. I'm sure he does. And what, looked like versus what the Navy's up against in the Strait today, because we don't own the Strait. We don't control the Strait. So we're going to do that. And just to remind you, right? Subscribers, go ahead and subscribe to the show. Like the show. Share this show out. Share it out. Because you can see it on Rumble under Jarome Bell or the Freedom First Network. You can watch it on YouTube. Get or not so much. And you can watch it on Pickaxe and also Subscribe Star. I put the shows up on Subscribe Star after the show. But you can watch them on pickaxe.com. I put the show up there after as well. So I hope you're going to be ready for a big heavy hitter when we get back. Absolutely, Ginger. Absolutely. Celebrate our 250th while being slaves to Israel. People get upset when you say that, man. People get angry. But it's true. They are literally, and if you didn't know this, right, I talked about Section 224 in the 2027 NDAA, how they were going to merge our militaries with Israel. Worst thing we can do ever. Israel will attack us. Israel will nuke us before anyone else does. I promise you that. And we have these Congress people, men and women, that are supposed to be representing the United States that are traitors to this country, and they need to be removed from office. Hopefully, we can vote them out. But they voted to merge the Israeli military with our military. It used to be in section 224. Now it's in section 219. They moved it. They moved it. So this is what happens. This is where we are. This is where we are in this country. 250th anniversary. We've been at war for 231 years. Per George Galloway. If you guys don't know who George Galloway is, he has a talk show. George Galloway is this Brit. Very smart guy, though. Very, very smart guy. So I'm going to read to you now. So I was going to read this to you. And this is from the 14 points that was signed by Iran and the President of the United States. And the bad part about this is that we had our Vice President of the United. I don't even put clips up anymore. Sometimes they don't run. But our Vice President of the United States and our Secretary of State, Marco Rubio, basically said that this MOU was just a game. This MOU is just giving us time to move more forces into the area, replenish Israel, replenish our stockpile. Well, you know what? Iran is replenishing too. And they are replenishing with something that you are not going to want to see. But from the 14-point MOU, this one clause right here disputes every claim from the president, vice president, Marco Rubio, or whoever in the United States that that Iran broke the ceasefire by bombing two tankers trying to not use the approved course coming through the Strait of Hormuz that Iran controls. It's number 5. Number 5. Hormuz reopens toll free for 60 days only. And this is plain English. It's not in Chinese. It's not Japanese. It's not Ebonics. It's not, any other language for anyone that watches this show. Plain English. Hopefully you can understand plain English. Iran, and I'm going to say that again because President Trump signed this. It says Iran, not the United States, not Israel, not Oman, not Pakistan, not Gulf Arab Emirates, not Saudi Arabia, not Kuwait, not Bahrain, not Abu Dhabi, not Dubai, not England, not France. It says Iran arranges self-passage of commercial vessels at no charge for 60 days. Persian Gulf to the Sea of Oman with demining and obstacle removal. That 60 days only language is your tolling is. Oh, it says these are the points that were sort of, I guess, fuzzy, right? But that's what it says. That's what it says. And they recover the reconstruction, and economic side, including a private fund. This has been up for discussion of at least $300 billion, which is designed to trigger investment in Iran, subject to the final deal, plus release of all frozen assets. Plus release of all frozen assets. Now, I'm going to give it to you. That was the short version. Here's the long version. Upon the signing of this MOU, the Islamic Republic of Iran will make arrangements using its best efforts for the safe passage of commercial vessels with no charge for 60 days only from the Persian Gulf to the Sea of Oman and vice versa. The traffic of commercial vessels will immediately start, and considering the needs for removing the technical and military obstacles and demining of the Islamic Republic of Iran will be instated within 30 days. The Islamic Republic of Iran will conduct dialogue with the Sultan of Oman to define, not with the United States, not with Israel, not with Europe, not with Saudi Arabia. Iran will conduct dialogue with the Sultan of Oman to define the future administration and maritime services in the Strait of Hormuz in discussion with other Persian Gulf littoral states in line with the applicable international law and the sovereign rights of coastal states of the Strait of Hormuz. That's what it says. In paragraph 6, the United States of America undertakes with regional partners, that's the rest of the Gulf partners, probably Kuwait, Qatar, those guys, to develop a definitive, mutually agreed plan with at least 300 billion US dollars for the reconstruction and economic development of the Islamic Republic of Iran. And this is what Trump is saying. Oh, we're going to use the money to buy food because they're starving. So Trump is already talking about taking this money from them and buying food from American farmers and forcing them to use the money to buy our goods. This is what Trump is saying. This is not what Iran is saying. So it says this mechanism for the implementation of this plan will be finalized as part of a final deal within 60 days. All required licenses, waivers, and permissions needed for the relevant financial transactions will be granted by the United States of America. So there it is. There it is right there for you. Right there for you. It says Iran. Make sure Larry still, let me see. Did I? Mm, 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 mm. Wait a minute, I just got something from Larry. Hold on. Or something. Hold on, I got checking my email for a second. I have not received a link. Yeah, you did, Larry. Here it is. Let me send this back to Larry again. All right, so Larry will be on in a moment. I just sent him the link again. So I tell you what, we're gonna take a break. We're gonna take a break, and we'll be back with Larry Johnson. Just give me a few minutes. We're gonna break.
Your day doesn't happen in one place. With P1 FCU, your bank.
Larry, how are you, man?
Hey, brother, how you doing? Nice shirt.
I'm good. Hey, man,
Strong.
this is I broke this out because of you, man. I see all those shirts you wear when you're on Judge's show or Mario's show. So I'm gonna break mine out just for Larry tonight.
Yeah. Strong choice. Strong choice.
Yeah, actually, hey man, thank you, man. Hey, so Larry, like I said, guys, Larry is a former CIA intelligence officer. He's a former planner at the State Department's Office of Counterterrorism. He spent 24 years training U.S. Special Forces as an independent contractor, and he co-founded Veteran Intelligence Professionals for Sanity. In 2024, he addressed the United Nations Security Council and attended the St. Petersburg International Economic Forum. He's interviewed Russian Foreign Minister Sergei Lavrov face to face. He runs sonar21.com, and he's the son of an American Revolution, where he's been tracking, of course, what we've been talking about here on the show for the past few weeks, Operation Epic Fury, the Hormuz shooting match, Ukraine-Russia war, with a level of candor that's got him blacklisted by the establishment, left and right and center, basically like myself. Here's Larry, man. I hope I did you justice with that.
Oh, yeah, you did. Thank you so much. Very generous.
I appreciate it. Thank you for joining the show. Thank you for coming into what I call the lion's den, even though it's only a lion's den for basically liberals and people that don't want to believe where we are. But so what I'm going to do first, Larry, because what I opened with is we had our 250th anniversary, right? So before we get into Epic Fury and Hormuz, I want to ask you, and I said I was going to bring over this question to you. Are we still a republic here in 250 years? We have license plate cameras scanning 20 billion plates a month, with federal agencies getting side door access. We had a Supreme Court this week that shielded a corporation, Monsanto, from a jury verdict. And I know you spent your career inside the system that basically does the watching, right? So the
Yeah.
straight answer here: Are we still a free people with all this apparatus, or has the apparatus already beat us? Are we lost?
But I don't think we're lost yet, but we've certainly taken a beating compared to the kinds of freedoms we enjoyed, 150, 200 years ago. Well, that many enjoyed. Let's acknowledge there were there was this thing called slavery in the United States. So those who were the working cogs of that, uh, those people didn't appreciate it. But the United States is really we have strayed from the commitment that was at the foundation of the creation of this country, which was freedom from foreign oppression and to limit the powers of the government so that the government could not rule over individuals, that put a real high priority on individual freedom. So, yeah, I think we're in some troubled times. There is no doubt about that. And the what I call the uniparty, it doesn't matter. Really, it's turned out it didn't matter whether it's Republican or Democrat in charge. Um, the same old system goes on. I would just simply note not a single person that was involved in the whole Russiagate episode has been prosecuted on those charges. Uh, they're going after Jim Comey for, you know, he's doing 86-47,
Mhm.
implying there was a death threat against Trump. But he killed the Constitution. He allowed the kinds of spying activities on an American citizen. He should be punished for that.
Right.
Uh, John Brennan, Jim Clapper, the heads of, Clapper when he's head of DNI, director of national intelligence, and Brennan, the CIA director, egregious violations of civil rights. So they walk around unpunished, no accountability. You look at how the Trump administration has gone after some people for allegedly vandalizing the reflecting pool, and yet these people who violated the Constitution, including, um, I forget the investigative journalist's full name. His first name's Steve. He was just on Tucker Carlson explaining the evidence he
Steve
has.
Baker. Steve Baker.
Steve Baker, yeah. I mean, the evidence he laid out, what he has uncovered, and instead of the FBI patting him on the back and saying, "Hey, man, thanks, we'll follow up. We got it from here." Instead, once again, the United States is they go after and have arrested yeah, an autistic black man for doing a
Right.
crime that the young man, no way he did it. Not only does he not have the gait, the walk that was visible on film, but he doesn't even own a watch, and you can clearly see, some sort of smartwatch on the wrist of the woman that did this. And
Right.
Steve Baker, he's identified her by name, and the deep state's covering up for her. So, it's incidents like that to make you wonder, what's happened to us.
Yeah, there's incidences like that just totally piss me off. Not only being a black man, but to accuse a black man. It seems like they do that a lot often. I watched that Steve Baker episode on Tucker, and he has everything. He laid it all out, I'm
Yeah,
sure, in his
yeah,
lawsuit because he's being sued. So I know he said some things that he was allowed to say, I guess, by his attorney. He did mention the lady's name, and you have to think about it. This guy, his civil rights were violated. He was questioned by the FBI without a lawyer. So an autistic guy too. And for the audience, I want you guys to understand that this guy that they have saying that this is about the pipe bomber incident in DC, the RNC and the DNC. And if you haven't watched that episode of Tucker, I suggest you go watch that. That this man, autistic man, and even his mother said it couldn't be him. It's not him. And I mean, even down to the shoe size. Steve Baker broke it all the way down to the shoe size. It couldn't be this
yeah,
guy because his damn feet are too big, right?
yeah.
And
He
so
wa-
it pisses
he wears it. He wears a 12. The
right.
the bomber wears a 9.
Yeah, and she has this walk, this gait from an injury. He has all of the proof. He has video. He has everything, and they still want to pursue this guy basically like they're pursuing the fake killer of Charlie Kirk as well, because I
Yeah.
don't think that guy
Right.
did it. You know, he
Yeah.
didn't do
Yeah.
that. He was one. He may have. I mean, we've been, the patsies, right? Since JFK, they've always had a patsy. You even had the Las Vegas shooter. That drunk guy never did that. He didn't take all the weapons up and start shooting down. And oh, by the way, he shot himself. The Las Vegas shooter. And it seems like that all of these things, when they start to fall apart, okay, they tend to leave the news cycle very quickly, just like President Trump shut down the Butler investigation. Why would you do that?
Right.
Why would you shut down the Butler investigation if you're the target? Right? Why would you do that?
Yeah. Well, and you've got Joe Kent's testimony that when they were wanting to start looking at some foreign connections, and
Right.
that got shut down by Cash Patel. And I'm thinking, wait a second, I'm the one who briefed Devin Nunes about the CIA's involvement in spying on Donald Trump back in March of 2017. And I gave him some names, gave him some information, basically told him which rocks to go look under. And he went and started looking under those rocks. If you recall, he went to the White House, got some briefings from the Trump officials. And when he came out of
Right.
there, man, the media just went full
Right.
kamikaze on him.
I remember
And
that.
but the person he turned it over to do the investigation was Cash Patel. So I always thought Cash was, straight up, could be trusted. No longer, man. I wouldn't trust him to take care of my dogs.
Right. I mean, but didn't we trust all of these people, right? We trusted Cash Patel, Pam Bondi, you know, um, Dan Bongino, and we trusted all
Yeah,
of these people to go ahead and do the right thing. I mean, even President Trump this time. I voted for President Trump 6 times. I ran for Congress twice. I ran as the MAGA candidate in Virginia. The Uniparty spent 7 million to beat me, by the way. But but we trusted him again. We put him back in office. We gave them a Republican Senate. We gave them a Republican Congress to do the right thing. And you mentioned how none of the people from the Russia has been prosecuted, but we haven't had prosecutions from anything. Epstein, COVID
right.
19, Fauci still walking around. We're giving carte blanche to big pharma. Monsanto just won at the Supreme Court. So where do we go from here? And you can save that for later if you want, because I'll have some questions. We're going to Epic Fury in a minute, but because we're being lied to about that, we're being gaslit about that as well. And I know that to be a fact because I know people that were there with the bombs and missiles raining down on their heads when they were in the basement of the Bahrain Hotel. But where are we when this administration, I don't know when it turned. I felt it turned after Butler, Pennsylvania, a little bit, right? So I don't know if that was a stage. People are saying now that hey, that may have been a staged event, right? And President Trump shuts down the investigation. So where are we when we feel like we can't even trust anybody in this administration, even though I know I was, and a huge Trump supporter.
Yeah. No, I'm with you. It is dispiriting, disappointing, and it really breaks your faith in government. You hope, can we get some change? Can we get, you know, is there somebody who with an ounce of integrity that's going to stand up, blow the whistle, and unfortunately, the whistleblowers they end up getting targeted. And
Right.
what's so bizarre about the whole case of the January 6th alleged bombing, because it turns out those weren't real devices. They were fake pipe
They were fake,
bombs.
right, right.
So the cover that was being used is the Capitol Hill police would be able to say, "Oh, this was just an exercise." Now they haven't come out and said that, but it was it was staged in a way so they could create this narrative of this terrorism threat to the country and the terrorism threat to the Biden administration in particular to justify the kind of crackdown that subsequently took place, and just arresting American citizens for, many who did nothing other than walk into the U.S. Capitol. They didn't destroy anything. They didn't attack anybody. And yet, Trump pardoned some of them. That's true. But it was
Right.
sort of too little too late. Let's
But how
punish
many
the ones
years
that,
later? How many years
yeah,
later? It was 4 years
yeah,
later, you know?
yeah.
4 you know? I mean, and he could have
And,
did that on day 1.
and those people aren't being compensated for the money they had to spend for attorneys. And
Right.
then, those who spent time in prison. It's just, it really is a stain on our republic. It goes against the very, very thing that, my ancestors experienced. I have 28 direct ancestors that fought in the American Revolution, and one, I have my fifth great uncle. He's a man that really is sort of a model for what we need today. His name was Charles Thompson. He came to he arrived on the dock at Philadelphia back in 1739. He was 10 years old. His father had died 2 days previously at sea. So he was there with his older brother, my grandfather, William Thompson. And he had, I think, at least four other siblings. But we were still not clear what happened. But somehow William went to Virginia, became a farmer, but Charles stayed behind and he got apprenticed to a blacksmith. There must have been something remarkable about that blacksmith because one, Charles got to go to school and became proficient in Greek and Latin,
Oh, wow.
but he also he developed a relationship with the Delaware Indian tribes,
Mhm.
and I mean he became he was respected and received a name from them, which is basically, I think, roughly translated as a truly honest man. Because at one point, about 1759, so he was close to 30 at that time. Uh, there was the Indians brought a lawsuit against William Penn, the founder of Pennsylvania. So
Right.
you know, we're talking an oligarch here. We're talking a man with big money, deep pockets, deep state. And Charles was not a lawyer, but he testified, he provided critical evidence. He stood up for those Indians, for the Delaware tribe, and they won the court case. They beat William Penn.
Wow.
And so the fact that, I have a relative that had the balls to stand up to that is one thing. He later, he became the secretary of the Continental Congress. The copy of the declaration, or the existing Declaration of Independence, is in the National Archives.
Mhm.
He wrote that. That was written by him by hand. That was his writing.
Really? Wow.
Yep. And
Wow.
he was the first one to read out loud the Declaration of Independence to the citizens of Philadelphia on July 9th. Uh, some other trivia is when the document was first signed on, I guess, July 4th, there were only two signatures, John Hancock
Yeah. Right.
and my great uncle Charles Thompson. And then Thompson, the rest of the Congress signed, I believe it was on August 2nd. It's almost a month later. But then he kept that original document in his possession until 1789, when it was finally turned over to the newly established U.S. government. Now, what's interesting is he had he'd kept meticulous notes, documents. He knew about all the failings and shortcomings of those
Mhm.
members of Congress,
Mhm.
and apparently some of those men were not so different from our current members of Congress in that
I was about to
they
say
did
he
some.
had the early blacklist, black
Yeah,
book.
yeah, exactly. And so uh, he was being encouraged to publish it. Instead, he took it and burned all the documents. And he said the
Oh.
reason he did so was there were it would have revealed things about people that he said really would have sort of tarnished their reputation, and he felt it was not worth going back and tarnishing their reputation, to, let's say, maintain the narrative. So he could have ruined some lives, and he chose not to. But I believe there was sort of some honor in that. That again, he wasn't act. He could have acted out of vindictiveness. He could have blackmailed him for money. A
Hmm.
variety of things he could have, but he didn't. And,
Right.
and that's what I'm talking about. Having people that make those kinds of choices, where they have the opportunity to do the right thing or the wrong thing, and more often than not, we got a lot of people today choosing to do the wrong thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Do we have any of those type people serving in our Congress today?
Well, I think
Thomas Massey is one that comes to my
yeah,
mind.
I was gonna say Thomas Massey. I think Marjorie Taylor Greene was another. So there are a few, but
She woke up. She woke up. I have some story. I wasn't a big Marjorie Taylor Greene fan because she had the opportunity to endorse me and she didn't. She endorsed my rhino opponent. So she changed though. I don't know what it was. I've listened to her. I don't know what her motives were.
yeah,
Because we talked about this when I went up to meet with the Freedom Caucus because I met with the entire Freedom Caucus up there, and she was there in the room, and we spoke and we talked and everything. So I don't know why she changed, but I guess fortunately she did. She's come out. I don't know the ulterior motives, but I'm still reserved on her and her motives until I see what happens in 2028
yeah,
with her. But I think that especially with Thomas Massey being targeted by Trump, which I don't understand. This is the one of the most, if not the most conservative member of Congress of the House of Representatives that we have. And we have the president of the United States attacking this guy, going after this
right,
guy to because we know that Trump wants nothing but yes men around him. It's obvious now. If people can't see that, then the hell with you, right?
yeah,
And I don't give a shit about what you say about me and whatever. But if you can't see that he just want yes men around him to get everything that he wants, then we've lost this point of the until at least till 2026. I don't know what's going to happen to midterms, but Thomas Massey, you go after that guy.
yeah. No, it was inexcusable. And actually, I know the candidate that was brought in to run against him. I've known Ed Galron since 1997, 98, when he was an active duty Navy SEAL. Ed's a okay guy, but he was not widely liked or respected within the SEAL community. He had
Hmm.
some sort of uh, personal characteristics that were a little off-putting to people. But certainly he's not some sort of um, Kentucky gentleman that
Right,
was should step up and be a member of Congress. I would have thought he should have been the kind of person that stood up for Thomas Massey and said, "No, I'm not going to be a part of this because this is wrong. What was done to Massey was wrong."
right,
And and I think Massey's biggest sin was pressing for the release of the Epstein files.
right.
And here again, you look at all the effort that's gone to prosecute some people for allegedly uh, vandalizing the reflecting pool, help making it turn green and not blue, and yet they haven't unleashed that kind of investigative effort on the Epstein list. The people who have actually been, there are civil cases where they've had to pay fines,
Right,
and
right.
so the evidence is there. It's just they've declined not to pursue it because they're wealthy people, they're in positions of influence, and they're able to buy their freedom.
It's been said, and I agree with this, but my sentiment is I don't give a fuck. But they say that people on that list, if those names were to come out, that governments would topple. People in high places, it would cause so much, you know, um, turmoil within nations. I'm like, so what? Let it happen. because it probably needs to happen, before. I mean, because if not, we're just going to continue to have people that are blackmailed, to have people that are, serving us, and that's definitely no way to run a country. And
Yeah.
and that's one thing that I was, I used to be like, well, you know what, Trump is probably not on the list, but he's protecting a lot of fucking people. He's protecting a lot of buddies, probably those that surround him right now that's giving him billions of dollars, and they're getting billions of dollars of these government contracts like Dell Computer, and Zuckerberg is back at the table. Peter Thiel, who just moved his family to Argentina while building the cage for Americans here with, the surveillance system. But that's one of the big things I broke away from Trump with after this Epstein thing. I'm like, we had women, we have children, and we continue to have children that are kidnapped, that are put into these sex slave systems. I've seen it overseas. You've seen it overseas.
Yeah. Yeah.
We've seen it. If you've been out of the country, and I've been on every continent, and I've been in over 500 countries during my naval career, and you see it in every country that you go to. And for someone that's supposed to be the president of these United States, that could hopefully not stop it, but put a big dent in it, and he refused not to. That really, turned me against Trump.
Yeah. No, he had the chance to do the right thing and chose not to do it, whether it's fear, pressure, whatever. But um, you know, I've I've seen I've seen this kind of abuse by like back when I was the Honduran desk officer at the CIA, covering Honduras. You had congressional delegations going down. Senator Chris Dodd is an example,
Hmm.
and I had one of my friends who described for me that one during one of Chris Dodd's trips to Honduras, this guy was asked to line up a sexual partner for the Senator Dodd that was underage.
Hmm.
Now, uh, I like I said, I don't at the time. I mean, it was just in passing because this was there. Dodd wasn't running for any, but he was just commenting on how sort of perverse this was, and then you had the members of Congress come up and pontificate on different things. So,
Hmm.
there are a lot of skeletons out there, and as you know from your days in the Navy, uh, there there are always people around that are going to see, observe, and remember. And sort of shocks me is the audacity of some of these people.
Right.
You know, it's like, really, you're going to do that, and you got witnesses here,
Right.
and they just
Yeah.
think, yeah, I can get away with whatever I want.
Yeah, that's basically what they do too. Except when they go to Israel, because then they get
Yeah,
blackmailed. That's what happens when you go and kiss the wall. So let me ask you this. Then we're going to get into. I'm going to ask some questions about Rush, and then a little of the epic fury stuff, because I don't know, where we are on that. I know, to me, Iran, as far as this MOU, Iran is totally in the right. I read the section, the paragraph number 5 to the audience here as to why I believe that Iran is correct, because I don't believe President Trump read it. He signed it. But
yeah.
is MAGA dead as it was? Because I know we have the new face of MAGA. You have Mark Levin, you have Laura Loomer, and people like that. But is MAGA dead? And what do you think is going to happen in the 2026 midterms?
Well, MAGA, as far as Trump is concerned, with respect to Trump, is dead. When you lose people like Candace Owens and Theo Vaughn and uh, Ian, was it Ian Miller?
Ian Mill,
Ian
yeah, yeah.
and Tucker Carlson, and you go down the list. Uh, I know I'm off. He lost me.
Lost me.
'Cause yeah. So it is uh, the MAGA coalition right now is dead as far as supporting Republicans. Just because you're a Republican and claim, hey, I support Donald Trump. Well, what exactly do you support? do you support putting America second and Israel first? Sorry,
Right.
that we don't. We need to put the interests of America first. I mean, you know, one of the just continuing horror shows is what's happening in our inner cities in places like Baltimore and Washington D.C. So
Right.
they're largely black, but there's like up in Baltimore in a place called Pigtown. It's about half black, half white.
Hmm.
Uh, I was involved. This happened actually now 30 years ago. I was asked to be the assistant director of a church youth camp, and the reason was the previous year, I guess situation got a little bit out of control. So I I can't. I was the enforcer. I brought discipline and
Hmm.
just the kids, hey, you're not going to go wandering off into the woods. And yeah, I know teenagers try to do what teenagers are going
Teenagers.
to
Yeah.
do.
Yeah.
We're going to keep the hormones under control. But they brought in a group of kids from Pigtown, and the people who brought them, they had to warn us about this one 12-year-old boy. And they said, well, he's very sexually experienced because his mother put him on the streets, and we're talking a white kid. His mother put him on the streets when he was 8 years old,
Wow.
as for men to abuse. And how do you wrap your mind around that? It's like,
That's
and he wasn't a bad kid, but my God, how can you be a normal kid when
right.
that sort of horror is happening to you? And so here we are now. I think the average high school student graduating out of these schools, these inner city schools, they can't read. They
Right.
don't read at grade level. They don't do math at grade level. They're just being they're it's like nobody cares.
And
And
that's exactly right.
in fact, that's the thing. Yeah, how do you disempower a group of people? Make sure they're ignorant. Make sure they don't know how to read. Make sure they don't know how to do math. Make sure uh, they they're not uh, able to compete in this world that we live in now. And to me, that's another. I call that another crime against humanity.
Yeah, I believe it is too. And I have teachers that are friends of mine, and that they are totally disgusted because I've seen it, because I coach high school football, and I was in the school system, and I've seen it, over the years myself, that they just pass these people on. They don't care if they
Yeah.
can read or write. Like I was talking to one of my teacher friends the other day, and she was instructed by the principal, by the administration, to just pass this kid along. I mean, what kind of society? I mean, I know it comes from Germany and communism, and I know communism. I've been speaking about this for years. We've been living, I believe, under a communist system for more than a decade now, and you see it in the schools to where they just want to turn people out that can maybe do some service jobs or work, not anything technical, not read and write, just basically be slaves to the system. And this is what they're
Oh,
turning out in these schools, and it's totally disgusting. And it's one thing that upsets me because, like you said, it's mainly in black areas and black neighborhoods. But here's the kicker to that, and this is what I challenge, and the people that I challenge, that most of these areas and cities are ran by blacks. You got black
yeah.
mayors, you got black school principals, black city councils, black police chiefs. Black. I mean, you have these people that are running the system. So what are you? Are you the overseers of the slave system? This is what I call them. I said, you're just the new overseers. You're wearing the shirt and the tie. You have the title of principal or mayor, but you're just the overseers of the slave system because you're responsible for what's happening in your city.
Well, let me disagree with you a little bit for this reason. I'm not sure it's fair to label it a communist system because we saw the Soviet Union during its communist heyday. They took a largely illiterate agricultural population and turned them into a modern country where the literacy rate got up and is still well in excess of 99%. Same thing in China. I mean, in China, 52 years ago, I think the literacy rate in China was maybe 50%. Today, it's 99%. In the United States, the literacy rate, last I checked, is 79%.
Right.
And 50% of the people on that list, they read at the sixth grade level or lower.
Mhm.
So I'm not sure what name we want to affix to, this system that we've created, but I'm with you, brother. It sucks. You know, it's not serving the needs of the population. And I think for me, the fundamental of being a republic is that you take in the Declaration of Independence as written by Thomas Jefferson, but inscribed by my great uncle. We
Mhm.
hold these truths to be self-evident that all men are created equal, not just males, but that
Right.
all human beings are created equal, that they're endowed by their creator with certain inalienable rights. So that to me says God wants us to treat each human being as something special, as
Right.
something unique, because they're not, you don't treat them. And this is where we get to where I think the communism, where it tries to treat people as a mass, as a blob,
Mhm. Mhm.
and doesn't respect the individual rights. I'm all about respecting the individual rights,
Right.
even if people even have the right to choose to do the dumb and stupid things. But we've lost that care for the individual in this society, and
Correct.
we just want to turn them into another faceless name on a list of statistics.
Yeah, I agree 100%. Yeah, and that's a good clarification as far as education wise, as far as the communism thing, because you're right. Um, I mean, we can't compete on the world stage. And this is why, I mean, but this is our fault. And this is why President Trump's like, well, we can bring over 100,000 or 500,000 Chinese into our universities. Well, how about our Americans? How about the Americans? How about the
Right,
Americans get those, placed in them colleges and universities? Because when I ran, I was against I was running on an immigration moratorium and getting rid of all of the cheap labor visa programs and fill
right.
everything with Americans, right? Because I know that these foreigners, on the OPT, visas and things like that. These are the visas that people don't talk about. The L2, the J2, the OPT, where they come. I mean, they don't even mention those. They just talk about the H1B visas, which is bad, but it's not even the worst one, or the HB2. But Americans should have these opportunities, and we used to be, educationally, above ninety
Oh,
percent.
we were
I
the
mean, we were
top.
number one. We were
Yeah.
number one, and I guess the question, that you have to ask. That I know I haven't gotten a Rush or Epic Fury yet, but I'm just loving the conversation because I watch you on other shows, and so I basically know what you're going to say. My audience don't know, what you're going to say, but I know this. So I just like having a different conversation. That's why my show is unscripted and unedited because we can just go in either way or however whichever way the show goes, which is good. But who when why did that stop? And who stopped and what was the reason behind it? Because we were number one. Why not stay number one? Who came in and who took over? Right? I know what happened to black people. It came over with, and I did this show with Negroes and communism, right? I
Hmm.
did that, when it came over from Russia and shoot, I can't think of his name at the moment, but he came over, he got him, kicked out of Russia. He came over here, Trotsky,
Oh yeah.
Trotsky, Trotsky came over and then started all this stuff with the Negroes, with the civil
He
rights
was
movement and stuff
so
like
he
that.
he was yeah, Trotsky was a Bolshevik back in the
Right,
30s. But I go back to people, so I'm a fair bit older than you, and I remember sort of I was still young, but the demonization initially of Malcolm X.
right,
Now you look back at what Malcolm X was all about. he was all about improving the lives of black men and black women,
Correct.
you know, and upholding standards. And when Muhammad Ali took his stand back, back when he had a
Mhm.
slave name,
Right.
when he was Cassius Clay, and again how he was initially treated. Now, I at least his transformation into Muhammad Ali, and he actually became a symbol. But we've seen this, um, the propaganda in this country that uh, I, I, to racialize everything and
Hmm.
not treat people as individuals. This is the big difference. I've been to Russia 7 times, and uh, the Russians. I don't know how they do it, but they don't grow up looking at, oh man, that black man, what's wrong with him? I mean, they're the
Right.
ones that have brought Africans to Russia to study, and Patrice Lumumba University and then Moscow State University, and
Hmm.
to develop skills to go back to their, not indoctrinated with communist
Right.
propaganda, but literally educated,
Hmm.
educated men and women who operate at the highest level. And what I saw in Russia was, I've never seen that kind of racism, and the same
Hmm.
with, if you will, sectarian or religious division. Yeah, Russia is they're an Orthodox Christian uh,
Correct.
country primarily. I mean, you can't swing a dead cat in Moscow without hitting 3 Orthodox
Hmm.
churches,
Right.
but but the relationship with the Muslims, again, it's there's not this division, there's not this separation. I
Hmm.
became, during one of my trips, I became friends with a General Abdi Aladinov. Abdi is he's a Muslim from Chechnya.
Hmm.
He fought in that civil war that was basically U.S. backed. But man, he is first and foremost, he's a fierce Russian patriot,
Hmm.
but he's also a devout Muslim.
Hmm.
And for him, it's not a contradiction of either or. It's like he can be both. Whereas in this country, we get so hung up on, the divisions, and um, fortunately, I think at least up to one point, um, the sports provided a way to start. Sports in the U.S. military were provided 2 avenues to try to break down some of those racial barriers. I was
Right.
fortunate, I grew up in Independence, Missouri, just outside of Kansas City. So I was there in the formative years of the Kansas City Chiefs when they went to the first Super Bowl. And Hank Stram was the first coach in the NFL to really say, you know what, he didn't care about race.
Right.
He wanted the best. He wanted the
What the
best middle
players?
linebacker,
That's
Willie
right.
Lanier. So he brought in Willie Lanier. He wanted the best wide receiver, Otis Taylor.
Taylor.
Okay,
Yep.
so, and he wanted the best defensive end, Buck Buchanan. So these, uh, and growing up as a kid, we weren't taught as the, oh, these are black men. No, man, these are
These are-
chiefs.
Right. That's right.
you know
Uh-huh.
you loved them for what they did, not for
Right.
saying, "Oh man, look, the color of that skin is off from mine." So that was sort of a beautiful thing, to try to recapture that. Uh,
Hmm.
you know, I think the world would be better off.
Oh yeah, I think so too. I've been to Moscow as well. Spent 10 days in Moscow, and when people ask me, because like I say, I've been on every continent. I've been in over 500 countries, and when people ask me, "Where's your favorite place?" Immediately I say Moscow.
Yeah,
Immediately I say Moscow because you didn't, like say, you didn't feel, and of course being black, I didn't see too many of me over there, right? but I
yeah,
didn't but I didn't feel like that, right? And
right,
it was, I mean, it was more of a, I guess I was more of a because I didn't see too many black people at that time either, but I was more of a commodity, and I was treated basically like a commodity because I was different, right? Because I was different. And when you're different over here, you get ridiculed, you get, maybe, your butt kicked or whatever, right? But over there, it was the one of the greatest times I've ever had in my many
Yeah.
travels of being on Red Square, walking through Red Square,
Yeah.
going,
Yeah.
said looking at the Kremlin, looking at their, unknown soldier tomb that they have there, going into the big church there, right there, in Red
S-
Square, and going through.
St. Basil's Cathedral.
Yes, 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 yes. And and going through there and looking at all of the history, of Russia, and knowing what I know now of Russia, of the Bolshevik Revolution, and how, all of that transpired. And knowing that we've been lied to most of our lives here in the United States, most of us who've been
Yeah.
living, I just turned 60 in on July 1st, but even I've come to,
Happy birthday, by the way,
know.
brother. Happy
Oh,
birthday.
thank you, man. Appreciate it. That we've been lied to our entire lives here in the United States with the propaganda, with all of this. The big thing that Russia is this terrible country. It's not.
Yeah.
It's not, and I've said this on the show before, it's not a terrible country, and by the way, they're more modern than most of our cities are here
Oh, yeah.
in the United States. I mean, and it's, amazing. You ride their subway and it's clean. I
Yeah.
mean, it's immaculate. They have underground shopping, they have underground restaurants, they have all of these things that most Americans don't know about because they just hear about Russia is this bad country. And when you talk about, what's happening now in Russia with the Ukraine thing, with our involvement back in Ukraine since 2014, of Russia, is it because I've come to believe that it's because that Russia and Putin actually tells the truth. You mentioned no propaganda. There's no propaganda there. They actually,
Yeah.
tell the truth and want people to know the truth. And I've said it before, and people say, "Oh, you're just a Putin lover, you're trying." No, I actually commend Putin
Yeah.
on not going ham on destroying Ukraine, because he could have did it in the first 2 weeks. He could
Right.
have
No,
did it in the first
exactly
2
right.
weeks, And so, I mean, and I don't believe that he didn't wanna do that because he understands that those are Russian people. The people of Ukraine are Russian fucking people. They're not damn
Yeah.
Ukrainians. That shit, Ukraine's some made up fucking country, you know?
Yeah.
And he understands that he's killing his own people. But I think at some point, especially with what, Ukraine just did here last night or a couple of nights ago, where they, bombed deep into St. Petersburg. At some point, I believe Putin's going to have to, and this is where they want to try to push him into a war with NATO. But at some point, Putin's going to have to say, okay, enough is enough, and just fucking get rid of Zelensky and do what he has to do with Ukraine. What do you think about
Yeah.
that?
Well, first, let me. When were you last in Russia?
I was in Russia last when in 2000, 2001, 2001.
Oh, brother, you got to go back.
I plan
My
on it.
lord,
I
my
I
lord.
plan on it.
Listen, I got friends who were there in 2001. They said it was a shithole. Today,
Oh shit.
it is incredible. I don't know if you ever stayed at the Metropole Hotel, which is
Yeah, that's where we
about
stayed at, the Metropole. That's exactly
okay.
where we stayed at
Now,
before it
now
was
I don't.
bombed.
Yeah, I don't know if so. When I was there, and this has been a year ago now,
Okay.
or less than a year ago, directly across from the Metropole Hotel, yeah, on that square, and you got
Mhm.
the Bolshoi Ballet that sits off to your right as you come out of the door. There is an incredible Italian restaurant. Now, they they had the best damn pizza I've ever had anywhere.
Wow. Wow.
Unbelievable. I'd travel back to Moscow just to eat that pizza.
Uh-huh.
But yeah, I've written extensively on how the United States has provoked this entire war with Russia, and
Mhm.
it goes back to
Absolutely.
1990. It goes back to 1995. Um, and Scott Horton's book, Provoked, is a very good. I mean, he lays out in chapter verse detail. But we started when Russia early on asked to be part of NATO. under Yeltsin, and they said no and hell no. Then Putin comes in 1999, August
Hmm.
of '99, and
Right.
that's when the Second Chechen War had started. And so, um, and he came in and he did one thing, and this is why I think there's so much hatred towards him in the West. He shut down the oligarchs. He called them in
Right.
for a meeting like in 2001. He said, "Okay, this robbing the country is going to stop. Make money, be billionaires. That's fine. I got no problem with that. But you're going to stay the hell out of politics, and you're
Hmm.
going to stop selling off our heritage to these foreigners. So make money, build up Russia, and if you don't want to do that, I will put you in jail." And he put two. One was Mikhail Khodorkovsky, and I forget the other one. And then there were a couple of Jewish oligarchs that fled.
Uh-huh.
Berezovsky was one, uh, because they didn't want to abide by those rules. But then again, what they reestablished was, for Putin. He says we're a Christian nation and we're going to uphold Christian values, and that way we're not going to promote homosexuality. If
Right.
what people do in the privacy of their apartment, that's their business, but don't bring it to the streets.
Hmm.
Don't parade it as if this is how we want our families and children to be raised, because we don't. And that's, I think, where a lot of the Western animus is directed at him, because
Right.
he's not into encouraging this kind of degeneracy we see in the West.
Hmm.
And what's recently someone was talking about, oh, you want to invade Europe, and he basically said, why do I want to go take over Germany and have to handle a bunch of blue-haired transgender people? I don't want that. you
Right.
know,
Uh-huh.
I don't. They can that's what they want. Let them have that. Keep it away from
Right.
us.
Right.
But stop building bombs and launching them at us. That
Hmm.
then you're going to have a problem with us.
Right.
So this war is now. It actually is in the process of winding down. It still has been described as a special military operation, because it's not a full-on mobilization of the economy of the people to a total war effort. Uh, they've tried to avoid that, and the West is doing its damnedest to try to force that.
Right. Yeah, I agree 100% with that. And I mean, it's and of course we're using our puppet Zelensky, and like you mentioned, the LGBTQ thing. I mean, this guy, he's an antipatus of it. I mean, this guy, the puppet. So where do we? I tell you what, how much longer can you stay?
I, I, I
I
do
know
about
we I
another
know we
20.
scheduled an hour. Okay, okay.
Yeah, yeah, I do about another 20 minutes with you.
Okay, cool. All right. Okay, so we're gonna go overtime here on the Radical Republicans live show. We do that sometimes, once we like to get into conversations like this. So where, I mean, not even getting into all the money spent, because I mean it's billions of dollars. Even though Hexeth, diminished it. They don't never talk about our bases over in the Middle East that's been destroyed, annihilated. They don't mention all of the aircraft, the billions of dollars, the 24 MQ-9 Reaper drones at 30 million each. You got the MQC-4
60,
type.
S-
Oh, they're
brother.
60 million each
Well,
now.
you're right. The airframe is 30 to 35 million, but then
Right.
when you put the different pods on it, like
Yeah.
weapons pods and optical pods, etc.,
Right.
that boosts it up to like 60, 65 million.
Right.
So
And they've
yeah,
shot
it gets
down 24
expensive.
million. Wow, it's
Yeah.
totally expensive. This war, and so they put a price tag on it like 29 billion. My estimates and looking at, different things, the cost of the Strike Eagles, the KC 135s, all this, I'm up around 113 billion
Yeah.
personally,
Uh,
just looking at it, where you think we are on the cost of that, because, Hexeth and the administration is definitely lowballing a CENTCOM and things.
oh, I'd agree with you. I think it's at least that. You know, and again, this shows you how crazy we become as a country. We built this one drone called the Triton.
The Triton, the 4C
200,
Triton,
yeah,
something.
$250 million for a drone. Are you kidding me?
Wow.
200. It doesn't even have a damn pilot in
It
it.
doesn't even have a pilot. 250 million?
Yeah,
Really? So I didn't know the
yeah.
price on that. I heard about it,
And
but geez, man.
it got shot down, you know. So
Wow.
put that on the score sheet as well, you know.
Geez, I mean, yeah, we having all these things shot down by, a country who we shot down their Air Force. They have no Air Force, they have no Navy, they have nothing. We own the skies, we run the skies, and we control the Strait of Hormuz. Yet, we can't even get a aircraft carrier within 600 miles. I told the story, about when I was on the USS Carl Vinson
Hmm.
um, during Operation um, Ernest Will. Okay, so doing Operation Ernest Will in 87, 88, where we actually controlled the Strait of Hormuz. We sailed through the strait, the USS
Uh-huh.
Kidd, the USS Vincennes, when we actually flagged Kuwaiti tankers and escorted them
Yeah.
through the Strait of Hormuz, when we actually controlled it. And, because I was there and I was on Alert 5. I'm, sitting on the, rotors turning on the flight deck, just all this stuff, right? We're just waiting, we're sailing through. And now to listen at these liars, just flat out liars about how we control the strait. And we no, the fuck we don't. We can't even sail through the strait now,
Yeah.
like we did in 1988. So how the hell I know what controlling the strait looks like. I know what it feels like. I know what it smells like, right? I've been there. And then to listen at, the president and Hegseth and all these the CENTCOM commander talking about how we control the strait. We don't control shit over there.
Yeah,
Nothing.
it's a big difference. One of my good friends, Paul Evan Coe, he was a lieutenant commander, Navy SEAL at the time, and he was given the task of setting up the Hercules barge, which was a
Mhm.
floating special operations base just off of Bahrain, and they were there to interdict because this was the latter stages of the war of the Iraq-Iran war, and Iran was trying to mine the strait to hurt Iraq. And as you correctly note, our ships could sail in there. We could do interdictions. We could
Right.
sweep up the mines.
Yep.
Uh, but what's changed is, so back then, Iran wasn't sitting on a bunch of coastal defense cruise missiles. They didn't
Mhm.
have many submarines with torpedoes. They didn't have underwater drones. They didn't have surface level drones. They did have the bog hammer, these boats, these fast boats, but they didn't have, most of those boats weren't equipped with anti-ship missiles, which
Right.
they are now. And then you got the regular drones that can be launched from 100 miles inside Iran, and short range ballistic missiles all along. I mean, you're talking along a 200-mile stretch of that coast.
Mhm. Right.
So they didn't have that back then. They do now, and that's
Mhm.
why you don't see any U.S. ships daring to sail into there, because they're going to catch a missile in the side, and then all of a sudden, Uncle Sam's got some big problems. Did you ever get to dock at the Fifth Fleet headquarters there in Bahrain?
Oh yeah, yeah, we did. I've spent many days and months in Bahrain, so
Yes. Well,
yeah,
good. Enjoy that history because that base is no more. It's kaput. The Iranians have basically destroyed it.
right.
And they had $1 billion radar. I'm not exaggerating. One
Hmm.
radar that was worth $1 billion, and they used those radars. They would reach out as far to the east as, say, India, as
Hmm.
far to the north as the Black Sea coast of Russia, as far south as Diego Garcia, and as far west as like the middle of the Mediterranean. So it was big. And there was another one like that at Al Udeid Air Force Base.
IED. Hmm.
I've been there. Well, those are gone now. Those are destroyed.
Right.
So
Right.
we've lost roughly, those two radars each at $1 billion, and then some other radar systems that when you total them up, that's another $1 billion. So we lost $3 billion worth of radar that can't be replaced, because to replace them, you're going to need this thing called rare earth minerals that have been processed, and China's got those, and China said, we
China
ain't
has
selling them to you.
silver. We're not
Yeah.
selling you the silver, buddy.
Yeah.
we're
Yeah.
not gonna do that. Yeah, I've been on every military base there in the Middle East, including Israel. I've been on Israel. I've been to Turkey. I mean, all of them, and and spent some time. I mean, Tent City in Qatar, for a month at a time, and so to see that we're not going to have any presence there anymore. I don't believe we're going to have any presence over in the Middle East because we have to fly out of Jebel Ali now. I mean, we have to go as far as Africa or Italy to even fly missions out of there.
Hmm.
Off of a carrier 1,000 miles away. But as far as having, any bases, and this is what the American people are not getting told either. They're being gaslit on that we don't even have operational basis to do operations in the Middle East anymore.
Right. Yeah. That's what this war exposed. The major the major air base and transit point for before when we were sending troops into Afghanistan or
Mhm.
troops up into Syria or they all went through or into Iraq. So I
Right.
went through there and I was uh, I was doing contract work with JSOC with the Joint Special Operations
Mhm.
Command, and they asked me to go to Iraq in 2006, and I ended up going through Al Udeid, and it was had a TGIF Fridays on base,
Right.
but they all they also had some food trucks. They had a Burger King food truck, good burger, good Whopper, but they had a rec center for the troops and
Mhm.
sailors and Marines. And next door, right outside of it, they had a miniature golf course. Now, I was there, and I was there May, around May 20th and all. And man, it was Africa hot. Yeah, I mean, it
Oh,
was
oh,
pizza.
absolutely, man. You're talking 120 degrees, man. It's nothing.
Yeah, yeah,
Yeah.
pizza oven hot.
Yeah.
And you know, but the troops, God bless them, there were four young guys out there playing miniature golf in
Oh
120-degree
shit.
heat.
Oh, God.
Hilarious.
Yeah, yeah.
Uh,
I've spent some time on those bases, and like I said, a lot of time in Bahrain. But and just looking because I have some fond memories there. To be honest, I mean, shit. I bought a lot of gold out of there, man. Where am I gonna buy? Where you gonna go buy gold at now? You got to go to freaking Dubai or some shit. But so with that being said, and are we? Put like this: can we, I know the answer to this, but this for the audience because this is what the media portrays it as that can we and I'm gonna say safely because that'd be a misnomer, but can we launch an invasion with troops in Iran? Because I know there's some people asking that. Can we put troops on the ground in Iran and have them come back without being in caskets?
yeah, no. And bottom line, no. That's what we're set up on a 20th century battle plan. A 20th century battle plan that didn't have to worry about long distance cruise missiles, hypersonic missiles. You know, back in 2000, when we launched that invasion of Iraq in 2003, March, the buildup of forces started in January, February of 2002.
2002, right?
So we assembled 165,000 soldiers, and tanks and armored vehicles, et cetera, in both Kuwait and Saudi Arabia to go punching across the border. Well, we couldn't do that today because you assemble that massive number of troops in one location, man, that's a bullseye for one of those ballistic missiles that Iran has in abundance. And
Mhm.
so those troops would be sitting ducks. So there's no way we could assemble any kind of force and get it on land. So the ground force operation is off. And people say, well, what about our special operation forces? Well, you know what? I know about that. I spent 23 years scripting terrorism exercises for Delta Force, SEAL Team 6, uh, and we were always involved like the 75th Rangers, Task Force 160, and some other highly classified units that, some of them are in popular culture known as like Task Force Orange. Uh, so I knew what we were capable of. In fact, I was involved. We scripted an exercise that basically was to go into Iran in 2006 to seize a nuclear site. It was called an HDBT,
Hmm.
Hotel Delta Bravo Tango, and that's basically an underground facility. And we ran that exercise. JSOC did it out in the desert outside of Las Vegas. And the lesson learned out of that exercise was don't do it. you're gonna
Right.
you're gonna suffer too many casualties. It's too difficult logistically
Right.
and for what you want to try to accomplish operationally. So we can't use a ground force. And as you correctly noted, we got to keep, we've kept our carrier task forces, at least 200 miles offshore,
Mhm.
because if they get any closer, they're going to be fending off. And it appears that actually they still got hit. The Ford, the Gerald Ford,
I
I
was
believe,
just going to
got
ask
hit.
you that. I was literally, that was my next question. Do you believe that the Ford actually got hit? Because I was on a carrier, and there's no way in hell that was a laundry fire.
Yeah, I was said, yeah, you've been there, you've done that. You're telling me that they had enough dryer lint built up that it set the ship on fire for 30 hours? Come on.
No
That
fucking
that
way,
doesn't
man.
even pass the for a sailor, that doesn't even pass the sniff test.
No, here's
Now,
the thing too. Even down in that area, and this is for people that don't know carrier life and carrier and stuff. Like even down in that area, because they said 600 sailors lost their berthing, lost their beds. Down in the laundry, there's not even 600 sailors down by the laundry room. By the way, right?
yeah,
you know.
yeah. Yeah, so that was more gaslighting going on, saying,
Hmm.
no, nothing happened here. But the point is, and as you know from carrier operations, so you launch an F-35. Well, okay, an F-35 off the deck, it's got a 500-mile combat radius. So you're already 200 miles from shore, and if you want that plane to go any farther, once it reaches shore, it's already got to be thinking about refueling in
Right.
order just to get back to the damn ship.
Right.
So, you're going to do air refueling right on the coast of Iran? I don't think so.
Nah.
They'll
Nah.
they'll light up the KC-135 in a heartbeat.
And that's what
So,
happened. What
uh,
do we
s-
lose? 6 of them, something like that. Even though
oh,
some were,
more
on the
more
ground,
than
but
that.
yeah,
Yeah, there was one that claimed that claimed the lives of those six
yeah, in
crewmen
Iraq.
that went down, and it was hit by a surface to air missile.
Right. Yeah.
Because and I got that from a friend who was on the inside. He said, because there were actually two tankers there doing some refueling, and the
Mhm.
one tanker that was behind saw the launch, and it started taking evasive action. It still suffered damage to its tail,
Mhm.
but it still managed to land safely. But the other one got taken
The other
down.
got taken down.
So
Right.
we've got what we're left with is trying to defeat Iran with air power. And the lesson of history is air power is great for some things, but it doesn't defeat people on the ground. And the Iranians back in they watched what we did in 2003 and they go, you know what? All these all these offensive systems we have above ground, excuse me, we're going to put those underground and
Right.
we're going to harden them against a nuclear attack. And that's
Mhm.
exactly what they did. They got miles, hundreds of miles of underground cities that have
Right.
weapons stored. They can launch their ballistic missiles from underground. They don't even have there's not a visible silo that you can bomb.
Right.
There's the missile comes popping up out of the ground and you go, man, oh man, like a gopher. Um, so
Yeah.
uh,
A lot of
it,
people don't understand how big Iran is too. And these things are, I think, what they say, like 31 districts or something like that, spread out all over the entire country. And
yeah,
Iran is huge. The average American don't understand how big Iran is.
it's three times the size of Ukraine, four times the size of Iraq. And I spent like my first trip to my first and only trip into Iraq, we flew out of Al Udeid, and then we had to were on a C-130. Then we had to fly over to one of the Marine outposts that were out in the middle of nowhere, and then I mean, we were on that damn plane for about 4 hours.
Yeah.
And I'm sure you've been on a C-130 before, and the rule was, you know, if you gotta go take a dump in the in the in the toilet that they got, it's covered with a shower curtain.
With the shower
You
curtain. Yeah.
you gotta clean it up, and so you had a lot of people say, "Man, I'm not doing that." So,
Yeah.
but it's
Yeah.
just, and that was only, I said, that's one fourth the size of Iran. Iran's a
Right.
big ass country, and on its eastern border, man, it's got mountains, and so you
Right.
got mountain people in there.
Right.
And as we learned the hard way in Afghanistan, you don't want to go fight mountain people.
No. No.
They are some hard people.
Yeah, absolutely, man. Just and this is insane. But so, my final question. I'll let you go here and respect your time. But did I for the people watching? I like to say once again, did we get outsmarted? Did the United States underestimate what Iran was, what Iran had, how smart the Iranians are? Because the Persians are some of the smartest people in the world, or did we just go off of what Israel was saying? Because we know I believe the greatest threat to America is Israel. It's
Yeah,
not China, it's not Russia. I believe it's Israel, and or what happened there? Were we just, is Trump and the administration just that naive or just beholden to Israel, just blackmailed, scared of Israel to even try this? Because to me, it was, I said it from day one, it was insane anyway, and we can't
yeah,
win this.
yeah. No, it was a combination of either they didn't listen to the intel or we relied overly on Israeli intel. I remember at the outset they were saying, "Oh, they only probably got 3,000 ballistic missiles."
Right.
No, man, they had far more than that, and the reason is they're underground. We have,
Mhm.
unless you got an intelligence source that went in and actually counted them, and he came back out and said, "Man, they got a shit ton of missiles here." So we made some bad assumptions, and then the Iranians used some excellent tactics. So they'd launch drones, and they'd eat up our air defense.
Right.
Ted Postal, the MIT professor, he was on a show about a week ago Monday uh, with Danny Davis, and he did extensive analysis. He had a lot of video footage, and he said, the U.S. Patriot missile, which is supposedly better than anything the Israelis have, it only had a 10% success ratio in taking down inbound missiles. They could take down drones, but not the ballistic missiles. And so what the Iranians would do is they'd flood the zone with the drones and some older missiles that were slow flying. They'd saturate our air defense. We'd fire, and then we had nothing to reload and fire with again, and then they'd hit us, or they
Right.
were hitting Israel, and then
Mhm.
they pounded Israel pretty hard.
Yeah, yeah, you don't see that because everything is censored from over there, but they knocked the shit out of Israel. Haifa,
Yeah,
Tel Aviv, and Jerusalem. I mean, they got them pretty damn good. And I think one of the, I always say this, one of the reasons, and I don't understand sometimes. I know they do it because they love people, because Iranians, they actually love people, but that they could have actually destroyed Israel if they
yeah,
wanted to, because Israel
yeah,
was done. They had no protection from any missiles, and Iran hadn't even used their hypersonics. They maybe used one or two just to show them, but they haven't even used their main arsenal to destroy a country.
yeah,
Because I think they could have, because Israel was spent, you know, on everything. So I think Trump should walk away from this. I mean, take the L, like what you say, man, just take the L, walk away, build it however you want to build it as a win. Keep lying to the people. They're going to believe you anyway that we've, destroyed them, and they're, destroyed and all of this stuff. But for some reason, keep shooting shit out of the sky and keep bombing. But but we need to walk away from this. What's your assessment on that? And I give you the last word and let you go.
Well, uh, if we're smart, and that's a big if, we will not we will engage the Iranians diplomatically. We will try to come up. It's going to be a kiss your sister moment. We're not going to like the deal, but we don't have the power to force it. Right now, man, we're you remember when Trump said about a little over 3 weeks ago, now coming up on 4 weeks, he said we only got 4 weeks of oil left. Now,
Right.
he wasn't talking about the West Texas Intermediate crude that's coming out of the ground. The United States, we are independent with respect to sweet oil.
Hmm.
It's the sour oil, the sour crude, which is high in sulfur, that we don't have enough of. We have to import that. And our primary import destination locations were the Persian Gulf,
Right.
Canada, Mexico, and Venezuela. Well, the you take Persian Gulf out of it, Canada, Mexico, and Venezuela do not make up the difference. And
Right.
that sour crude is used to make diesel and aviation fuel. And people say, well, we can make diesel and aviation fuel out of the sweet crude. Yeah, we could if we had the refineries. We don't have the refineries.
Hmm.
You, you know, um, it's the difference between you want to make a cup of coffee with a Keurig. Yeah, you just pop the cup in, press the button, and you get your cup of coffee. We're talking about making coffee with a French press. Well, if you don't have a French press, you ain't making coffee.
Right.
And these refineries that are down along the Gulf Coast, they are specifically structured, and the chemical processes inside and the machinery, they are structured only to deal with that sour crude. And it's
Hmm.
not a matter of just saying, well, here, let's turn this button and flip this switch, and then we can use sweet crude. No, can't do
No.
that.
No.
So we're going to run out January 11th, roughly. That's the rough date. Uh, that we will have exhausted the strategic petroleum reserve with sour crude. Then we're not going to have enough to make our diesel and aviation fuel. And so we're going to face a fuel crisis here in about a week or so. And that's why Donald Trump signed that MOU. That's why he said we're going to run out in 4 weeks. He was
He did
exactly
say
right.
that. He did say that. Yeah, and I've
Yeah.
seen reports on that. And I gave the numbers to the audience before you came on as far as our SPR reserves that we're lower than we've ever been, since 1984, and we keep putting it on the market and exporting it, and to keep the gas prices down. I mean, but like it's like you said, the gas isn't a problem. It's the jet fuel and it's the diesel. That we're gonna need. And you say July? Did you say July 11th or January? You
Yeah.
said January.
July 11th,
Okay,
next week.
July. That's next week, dude.
Yeah. Yeah. Next Wednesday. So, and understand when they talk about the Strategic Petroleum Reserve, and a lot of experts, bless their hearts, they talk about it in the generic, but
Mhm.
that reserve is divided between sweet crude and sour
Right,
crude.
right,
So the
right.
sour crude is a smaller, actually, that's what we've been drawing down on that sour
Mhm.
crude. I mean, hell, we can export the sweet stuff overseas, and
Right,
again, that's helped kept the price of gasoline down. But the
right.
price of diesel is on a whole different, it's a whole
Hmm.
different ballpark.
Hmm.
So, we're going to face some significant economic problems here in a week or two, and when that starts impacting, I don't care how much happy talk they do out of the White House, that doesn't all of a sudden make up the sour crude. The other thing is, yeah, the Strait of Hormuz is open, but all that oil that's coming out, it's going to China, South
China,
Korea,
India,
Japan.
Pakistan.
Yeah,
Yeah, Japan.
yeah,
Right. Not
absolutely,
coming here.
absolutely.
It's
Yeah,
not coming
yeah,
here. No matter how many times Trump lied to you and say, "Oh, the oil is coming and they're running to the United States," and don't you guys believe that shit? Okay, don't you believe that? Don't stop being gaslit, man, because that's what's
yeah.
happening. Yeah. Well, Larry, thank you, brother. Thank you, man, for coming
Hey,
in for the first
Jerome,
time. Like I say, I enjoy watching
yeah,
you, man.
well, I appreciate that, and I really appreciate the invitation to chat. The beautiful thing about this internet, I get to make new friends all over
Yeah.
the internet, and glad to count you as a new friend.
Yeah.
You
Absolutely.
you live up in Virginia?
No, actually, I live out in Idaho now. I
Oh,
spent 20
okay.
years in Virginia. I retired, but then I've been living out in Idaho for the past 6 years. After the Uniparty spent $7 million to beat me in my last election bid, I said, "Screw this shit. I'm going out to some red country." And Idaho right now is it's been pretty good. It's been pretty good. So I love it out here.
Yeah, yeah. Except the winters, man. I admit I'm a pussy. I like being warm.
Yeah. Well, you know what? Surprisingly, here where I live in the Treasure Valley, it gets cold, but we don't get much snow. We get maybe 8 inches of snow a year, and I don't even think we got that this past winter. So maybe it's global warming, that bullshit or whatever. But yeah, I mean, we don't get much snow. We get the mountains, and the skiing wasn't even that good this year because we didn't get a lot of snow. So now we're officially in a drought. So you know. It gets cold
Yeah.
though. I grew up in Cleveland, Ohio, so
Oh,
I
okay.
still have a little tough skin.
Well, and then being from Cleveland, Ohio, man, you're used to heartbreak,
Uh,
with the Indians and the
Man,
Browns.
don't start that shit with me, man. But absolutely. Hey, man, the Browns are gonna be good this year. We're going to the playoffs, man. As soon as we figure out who the fuck our quarterback is gonna be,
Yeah.
but as soon as we figure that
Yeah.
out, man, we can start rolling, man. But definitely, man, we got to go to Russia, man. I need to talk to you about that, man, because try to look up some Russian fucking plane tickets. I can't find any, so I'm gonna have to talk
Yeah.
to you about
Well,
getting
to
back to
get to
Russia.
get there, what you got to do, you got to fly
Got to fly to
to
Europe.
no, Turkey. You got to fly
Okay.
to Turkey, Istanbul,
Hmm.
Doha, or Dubai. And
Okay.
Doha and Dubai, I mean, that's a three more
That's
hours to the
3 more
trip on
hours.
top of Turkey.
Right.
So
Right.
Istanbul, and the Istanbul airport is just amazing.
Yeah.
It's phenomenal. You got every friggin' fast food restaurant you can imagine in there. I mean, they got Burger King, McDonald's, Five Guys, Shake Shack, Taco
Oh wow.
Bell, Kentucky Fried Chicken, Slim Chicken. I mean, it's unbelievable. And
Wow.
then they also got
Uh,
local food too. But
okay.
so
Okay.
any American that says I got to have my fix of junk food, okay, you'll be hooked up
You can
okay
have it.
there.
You'll be hooked up, man. Last time I went through Turkey, I went to Incirlik and ate some native food with a friend I met, a military guy named Ishtosh. So, I try to do the native food when I travel, man. I
Yeah,
get all
I'm with you. I'm with you.
yeah. So,
So,
all
all
right,
right,
hey man,
brother.
we got to do this again, man. I appreciate you, brother.
Yeah, yeah, I'm happy to come back. Enjoy the chat, and like I said, strong statement on the shirt. You get 10 out of 10.
Thank you, man. Thank you. I appreciate that. All for
All
you,
right.
man. I watch you. All for you, man. I'm gonna be ready. I'm gonna be ready.
Yeah. So I was rocking the Fourth of July shirts
Yeah, I see
yesterday
you,
and
man. I
today.
like that. I like that shirt, man. I like that. I had the 4th of July on yesterday, but I said, hey, this is Larry's special. Normally for the audience, normally he comes in a Hawaiian shirt, guys. That's why I have this on. He's rocking the Fourth
Yeah.
of July shirt, so he tricked me up a little bit. So that's all
Yeah.
right.
Sorry, sorry about that. But hey, listen, I
I know
really
you
enjoyed
cool,
this.
man.
Thanks so much for thinking I'm worthwhile.
Hey,
One more
absolutely.
old man on your program.
Hey, man, absolutely, brother. I appreciate it. Hey, man, this is where we get knowledge at, though, and I appreciate you sharing what you have with the audience, man. Appreciate it.
All right. Hey, God bless.
Okay, you too. Take care, Larry.
Bye bye.
Bye. And there you are, guys. Larry Johnson. Hope you enjoyed the show. Went a little over today, and like I said, man, this is why my show is probably the best show out here, man. I had a bunch of shit on the Pentagon and aircraft lost and damages, and just a bunch of stuff, right? To ask Larry, but I think I like that conversation better, and that's why it's unscripted, unedited, unfiltered, uncensored, and unapologetic truth. And we're gonna be out of here, man. I appreciate you guys. And in remembrance and appreciation of our 250th year, we're gonna go out like this tonight. I appreciate you guys. You guys have a great week. See you guys next week. I have another interview, another guest next week. Gonna be awesome. So check you guys out. Thank you for joining the Radical Republicans live show. Love you guys. We'll talk soon.
All the things were gone, worked for all my life, and I had to start again with just my children and my wife. I thank my lucky stars to be living here today, 'cause the flag still stands for freedom, and they can't take that away. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. From the lakes of Minnesota to the hills of Tennessee, across the plains of Texas, from sea to shining sea, from Detroit down to Houston and New York to LA, where there's pride in every American heart, and it's time we stand and say that I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless the USA. And I'm proud to be an American, where at least I know I'm free. And I won't forget the men who died, who gave that right to me. And I gladly stand up next to you and defend her still today. 'Cause there ain't no doubt I love this land. God bless